I was taking exception. I wouldn't say it made me angry. I don't say anything like that, but my identity, my value is on what the future of the company is, but it I didn't love the fact that my identity, people would think that I'm just here to be a co-host on the Dale Jr. Download.
Got
Like
it.
I don't know what that was. That was something that I was having to really kind of wrestle with.
It's the Kenny Wallace Conversation, brought to you by JEGS.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kenny Conversation, brought to you by JEGS, the leader in high-performance aftermarket car parts. Remember to go to jegs.com for everything you need to fix your vehicle up. And they are telling me that they have Jeep parts and truck parts in stock right now. As I always say, deep breath. We have one of the biggest players in the NASCAR industry. And my newest, dearest friend, there is Mike Davis. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. That's not true. You're already getting us started off with a lie, Kenny. This is not how it's not true. But the true part is we are dear friends. That's a true part.
Yes. Yes. Well, I say it on every Kenny conversation, Mike. It is just that. It's a conversation. We're not going to go in exact order, but we're just going to celebrate your career. You have done a lot in a short period of time. So let's start like this. We're going to start with the good stuff, and then we'll kind of go back and see where you came from. But kind of in between right now, you are a Georgia Southern University graduate. So the question is this: are you a Georgia man at heart right now?
I'm an Alabama guy. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. So how I got to Georgia Southern is interesting because we moved to Tennessee when I was really young, and then we moved to North Georgia when I was going into middle school, and then I was always planning to go back to Alabama, but there was a new scholarship that if you stayed in the state of Georgia, I think they still do it. Because they implemented the lottery in Georgia, and the lottery was paying for these scholarships where if you graduated school with a B average or high school with a B average, your tuition was paid for if you stayed in state. And
Mm,
since I was graduating in Georgia, let's see here, get your tuition paid for in state or pay out of state to go anywhere else. That was an easy one, right, for me because I was putting myself through school. And so yeah, I went to an in-state Georgia school, and Georgia Southern is where I went, and I loved it. I loved it a little too much.
Well, you answered my next question, and I like it when we can do that because I'm a big fan of Instagram, and I see you there with your beautiful family. I see you're a girl dad, 2 girls, but
Right.
I believe you were on one of the cruise ships and you're sitting there with an Alabama hat on. I'm like, "What?" So that's an interesting story, and, yeah, those state lines get close, don't they? Down there, Talladega, Alabama, Atlanta, Georgia. It's just like you could go here or there for 15 minutes, and you're in another state.
That's right. That's right. And you can go north, and you'll be in Tennessee. I mean, like, you got to get. Listen, have spent most of my life. Well, now I've spent most of my life in North Carolina, but most of my life was in Georgia. But all my family's back in Alabama, and yeah, I've always got strong roots to where I was born and where we lived when I was early, and then and also I do have some connections with the University of Alabama to where I mentor their students. In fact, I got an email today from a student that was just wanting to connect with me and talk about a couple job opportunities they have. That's something that I've been involved with for about 4 or 5 years. It's just kind of a mentorship program to some of the sports communications and sports marketing students. That's been a lot of fun. I've gone to visit them. That's a thing that we've done. And so, yeah, I mean, like now Georgia Southern. Now, listen, always very dear to me because of I mean that's where I springboarded into where I'm at right now. Alabama contributed nothing to me on where I'm at today. Georgia Southern a good bit. So that's always going to be something special to me.
Okay, let's go right now, and then later on we'll go back. I think it's important, because everybody knows Mike Davis. Uh, you have two titles. One of them is funny, and the other one's dead serious. The first one that I like is one of your titles is you are Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s right hand man, and I believe that. That is my opinion. And then when I study up on you in the industry, the NASCAR industry, since 2004, it's been, oh, that's Dale Jr.'s right hand man. Uh, you were his PR man, but we're going to get there later. Uh, but your real one, and feel free to correct me. Your real one is you are the president and executive producer of Dirty Mo Media. And am I missing anything there?
No, that's it. That's it. Well, I've had a bunch of different job titles, frankly. But I've been with Dale since 2004. So
Yeah.
yeah, between that's 20 years. So like, yeah, I've had several roles through that. But I don't know. Listen, Dale has one right hand, left hand, and every hand, and that is Kelly Earnhardt Miller. I mean, there is nobody else that even comes close to the importance of what Kelly is to Dale. Now, Kelly also relies on a lot of or a few of us that I'd like to think that we're pretty close and that we have some influence, and she seeks our opinions out on stuff. But let's be clear, I mean, to say I'm his right hand man would somehow seems to undermine what Kelly is, and you know all too well how important she is.
Yeah. So I'm kind of debating with myself right now. Do we stay right there at Junior Motorsports? I don't think so. I want to go right into Dirty Mo Media
Okay.
because you've done a lot, and I've done a lot. But what are we known for? And sometimes we're known for what we don't want to be known for. But I think you would be proud of this. So we're going to go right in. We're going to go right into Dirty Mo Media. Then we'll go back to Junior Motorsports.
Okay.
Okay. And I
Hey,
think
I'm along for the ride, man. You're driving. I'm just riding.
you've done so much. All right. The number one question that I've always wanted to know. Take me to that exact moment when you approached Dale Jr., or you thought about it yourself, or you were doing something that you said, I want to start a podcast. Tell me that moment and what was going on in your head and where were you and everything.
I remember the exact spot where I came up with the name, or when I came up with the concept of Dirty Mo. Now, it was crossing a railroad track in Old Mooresville. Why I remember that, Kenny, I do not know. But let's back up just a second here. I worked for JEGS, who was Dale Jr.'s publicist at for Budweiser Racing. He was the company was called Fingerprint Inc. I mean, a lot of Dale Jr. fans know the name JEGS. And Jade was deeply influential in everything I know about PR and publicity, right? He was really a publicist by definition, truest thing. I don't think they have good or true publicists in the sport right now. I think that social media has gone and kind of redefined things. Anyways, Jade was the first one that I knew that did a podcast.
Oh, okay. Now we're talking. Because I was gonna leave him out of it, but it's very important now that you
Well,
say that.
Well,
Okay.
look, he was also the first one to do a blog that I'd never heard of the term blog until Jade did a blog. Jade was doing a blog as part of his his um part of his duties as Dale Jr.'s and Budweiser Racing's publicist. And that was something he had done. He was always the first one to anything technical, right? And anything internet. He was always that guy for me, at least. And so
Was he ahead of his time?
I I think so. I think so. I mean, again, I remember when he was doing his blog, a lot of the NASCAR media, and this is back when this was in 2004. So like, you had your David Pools, you had your Ed Hintons, um, uh, you had Mulhern, you remember the old guard of
Oh
NASCAR
yeah.
media.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people don't know about how the NASCAR old guard, boy, that was a stout lineup of media people covering the sport, traveling every newspaper, every media outlet was traveling people full
Gangsters,
time.
man. Gangsters.
So
They
so
were
so the blog, nobody knew what to do with that. Like Jade caught a lot of grief for it. I remember. because it was kind of an opinion editorial piece, and he would write it. Jade is a writer. He wrote 2 books, wrote more than 2 books, wrote 2 on Dell. So, anyways, it was on this blog that nobody knew what to do with, where he also started doing a podcast. And the podcast was about 1 to 2 minutes long. It was just I think, a recap of how Dale Jr. finished in the previous race. And I don't know who would have listened to it. I don't know. Maybe a few people. I have no idea. But that's where I first heard the name podcast. Now, fast forward, I come to work at Junior Motorsports in 07. Is that right? 07? Yeah. I worked for Jade 3 years. And we can get into why I came over to Junior Motorsports whenever you want to. But and then I had different roles from 2007 to 2010, 12, 13, all that stuff. And then it was it was when I had my first daughter where my priorities changed. And you know how this is.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, you have kids, and now all of a sudden the traveling just feels different, doesn't it? It's like
It's not as fun. You're in those hotel rooms all by yourself. If you're drinking, you feel like crap the next day.
it's just
Eh,
like I changed.
Yeah,
Having kids will change you.
we all
And
do.
so I ended up, Dale Jr. and Kelly were amazing because I finally had reached a point where I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. And I think Kenny, I don't think I know, I was willing to leave. I was willing to leave the sport and leave this profession to be there for my family. Cause as our garage, God bless it, is full of broken homes and a lot of parents that missed a lot of childhoods, right? Like there's a lot of people that just never got to really go to those ball games or never got to go to that piano recital. And so I just knew that wasn't going to be good for me. That wasn't going to be me. And so fortunately, Dale and Kelly gave me the most amazing gesture ever. And that was, they said, don't leave. You can hire somebody. But you're only as good, your value in the sport, if it's a traveling circus, so that we are, your value is pretty much on your ability to travel or your willingness to travel. There's some jobs that don't travel for sure, but I'm telling you, the ones that are making money or the ones that are being, really valuable to an organization, they're at the track. They are at the track. Or they're sending people to the track, right?
Yeah.
They get to pick their schedule. I knew that I was not going to be valuable that way, but that's why I was also willing to leave. But and it wasn't like I was threatening to leave. They knew where I was in life, and that I had my daughter, and by the way, with Dale Jr., it's never just the weekend travel. Like Dale Jr., there's midweek travel. Like
It never ends.
you would have to go make an appearance on a Wednesday, or you might have to go out to LA and shoot a commercial for the Super Bowl, whatever it is, right? So it's like it was a grind, and everybody kind of reaches that point. Anyways, they said don't leave, you can hire somebody. So we started hiring people to do that road managerial type thing that I had been doing at that point. And I say all that to say this:
Yeah, it's okay.
I gotta find something to do now, right? Like, I mean, again, I got what I wanted. I'm not traveling, but it's also boring. It's an office job now. So,
Let me stop you right there. Hold on.
okay,
I don't interrupt people unless it's necessary.
go ahead.
Dale Jr. and Kelly must have really thought you were valuable to say don't leave, because they must have really believed in your talent, because nobody keeps somebody if they don't have something for them to do. I just want to brag on you a little bit. We're celebrating. That's what Kenny Conversation is all about. They kept you, and you basically said, "I don't want to go on the road anymore." That's a really big compliment.
Yeah, like I said, I took it as a compliment. It's the kindest thing anybody's ever done for me in this profession, in the work life. Okay. And that was that gesture of don't leave, because again, I know reality. I know that now they have to go hire somebody. Now we have to go pay twice as much as we were spending. Now, I mean, like that's an enormous gesture. Why they did it? I mean, I'd like to think that we developed enough of a rapport, and I had some influence that they valued my opinion on things. At that time, I was running communications for Junior Motorsports, and also the road managerial thing, and also Dale was in this point. You'll remember. I mean, he wasn't running that good at Hendrick Motorsports, right? Like we went through a pretty funky dry spell, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
and it was and so yeah, it just there were things that were just kind of like trying to keep it on its axis might have had a little bit to do with it. But then when Letarte came, and this all was sort of happening at the same time because Letarte, I believe his first year was it 12 or 13? Anyway, I'm drawing a blank on that.
It's okay. The years are not important.
But
It it
but but
it, it it happened.
but they kept me, and I then started doing media stuff here. I mean, again, I'm a journalism major. I came from newspapers. Um, I I claim to be a writer, although there's many that are way better at writing than I am. But um, but I've always been fascinated with the media and the publicity, and also now the brand. How do you market your brand? And Dale Jr. has an enormous brand, but it also can be misused. And so I was fascinated by all of this stuff. And so it was those things that sort of sowed the seeds of Dirty Mo Media, right? Because it was
Mhm.
like, you know, brand marketing, um, fascination of just media, the spoken word, communication, which again, communications guy here, and then also boredom. I got to find something to do. I'm not really a sit down and just be an office guy. So we started doing videos, and you can relate to this. It's like you start doing videos not knowing a dang thing of what you're doing, right? Like you don't even know. It's funny. You go back and look at some of our first videos. This was pre Dirty Mo Media. We were doing a video series called JRM 360. And we just started doing it and kind of showing some personality and transparency inside our race shop. Man, we didn't even know how to white balance a camera. It looks like it's snowing because it's July. It's like everything's like just blown out. And so now we look back and we were like, "Oh, I can't watch this. This is painful."
Oh,
But you
that's
know what we
funny.
were doing? We were learning, and we were just realizing, like, how do you connect with fans? How do you connect with an audience? How do you grow an audience? And you got to mess up a lot of things and we still mess up, right? Like, and I'm not afraid of messing up. I mean, like, we like to think we take swings at stuff and not afraid to miss occasionally. We like to think we can make some contact here and there, but like the fact of the matter is that that's how it started. And then we started, and then that go back to that day. I'm crossing those railroad tracks in Mooresville, driving to work one morning, and I'm like, we need to have a podcast network, and I'm going to start the Dale Jr. Day. Like I thought about a name for a show, and Dale Jr. was not going to be participating. I knew that because he was busy racing, and we just wanted to start creating a show that recapped and gave a look into Dale Jr.'s race, like really kind of unpacked a race better than the TV network was doing for Dale Jr. Like I
It
don't
it
care about
at
anybody else. It's
at
about
thi
Dale.
and at this time, nobody could get enough of Dale Jr. because he was shy, in my opinion. He was kinda quiet, in my opinion, and so you could never get enough of Dale Jr., so I'm with you, I'm with you.
Well, we also hit a wave because we started the Dale Jr. download in 2013. Well, 2014 is when he won the Daytona 500 and he won
Mm,
three other races. I mean, he won the Martinsville race in the fall, won the two Poconos. So that helps,
yeah,
win a
yeah.
Daytona 500. Hopefully your business benefits from it,
It's
right?
everything, it's
Right.
everything.
And so we were still very early. Again, Dale Jr. wasn't really active on the platform. He knew about it and he knew that I was doing it. And we were, but that was a thing that really kind of helped us get it off the ground. And then we started kind of building some other shows and creating them and getting them launched.
So at what point did you convince Dale Jr. that, "Hey, this is big. This is going to be big for you. It's going to be good for you." When did that moment come? Do you remember that conversation with him?
Yes, I do. But first of all, I'll say I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure we've convinced him of that. But the fact is that I remember when Dale Jr. was concussed,
Oh yeah, the concussion.
right? And he missed a few weeks. Again, the year I'm drawing a blank on which year it was, but it was the one we were in the playoffs at the
Yeah.
time called the Chase, and then he had to miss a couple weeks. Now we weren't really threatening to win a championship. I don't remember that. But like we were in the playoffs and he got concussed at Talladega. And that's the one you'll remember. He said he called the sport bloodthirsty.
Mm,
And he was outside of his mind because he was, suffered a concussion. We didn't know. And he was missing some races now, and nobody knew, including us, nobody really knew what to do with that. And so eventually, and I don't remember the specific timing, but eventually there was this need, and we could feel it. There was a need of people needing to hear from Dale on
mm.
what the heck is going on.
Now
Media
we're
needed to hear it, fans needed to hear it. And I'm just like, oh, we've got this vehicle. We got this podcast. It's the Dale Jr. Download. And again, you know about it, but it's like up until then, he would just in year one, he never was on it. In year 2 and 3, he would just lay his thoughts after a race into his phone and just send me the audio file, like in the voice memos, right? And we
Yeah.
thought that was amazing. Like that was Dale. That was a glimpse into kind of what his mind is going through right after a race. He's back. He's not at the track. He's now back home. He's cracked a beer, and now he's sometimes by himself. Sometimes I'm there, and now he's just kind of like rewinding kind of what the day went, right? Like how things unfolded. And so we thought that was an extraordinary value. And then, but eventually, when he was concussed, he was missing a few races. He and I would talk, and it's like, hey, why don't we go on the podcast and really kind of like you talk directly to the fans. Don't let them have to read it. Don't let them have to hear it through Claire B. Lang or whatever. Just and she would have done a fine job. I'm just saying is that let them hear from you.
Yeah.
And that was the first one. That's when we knew not only that we had something that could, again, you're looking at ways to connect to your fan base. But that also was one where I remember thinking, well, Dale Jr. is pretty good with a microphone too, right?
Yeah.
When he's really just kind of coming from the heart. And that was a big episode. So then eventually we realized, or he realized that he might want to do this a lot more. He would come on the download here and there, and but me and another guy were hosting it, and eventually we decided that he could take that over. And he said he wanted to do a podcast. We thought about whether we should start a brand new one or if we just let him take the keys to the download, and that's obviously what we did. And then we were off and running, you know.
As I listen intently, it sounds to me like Junior had some concussions. I remember the one coming off at turn 4, California Speedway. And he came out with another controversial statement where he said, I was, messed up running some races, and everybody was aghast, like, oh. So this is amazing. So in now we're going to download everything you said in like a sentence. Am I hearing you right? Because of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s concussions, you say, hey, come on, tell everybody what's up. Although you already had started it, but this was the vehicle to starting the Dale Jr. download. Is that right?
We had been doing it for 2 or 3 years. I don't remember
Yeah.
how many. I mean, it might have actually been a few more, but it wasn't with Dale coming into a studio like people as they know the download today. There was nothing like that. Like I said, it was a process. It was a gradual escalation of direct involvement. It went from nothing, and it went to him laying his thoughts into the phone one year, or we did that for a year or two. Eventually, though, I remember the where Dale wanted to be involved with the platform was after the concussion situation.
I find it amazing that you recognized. Now, this is about you still. We're just talking about how you got there. Listen, it's like you got to talk about Rusty, to get to Kenny a little bit, because my whole life was my brother Rusty. But you recognized that he was in this, he was young, and he would take his phone, and you're like, oh, he's giving me his thoughts digitally. Usually people would have to write this, or you call on the phone, they're taking notes. He's so what you're saying, he was so far advanced that he was just talking to it and send it to you.
Oh yeah.
And,
We used to laugh. Like you'd hear a dog barking in the background, or you'd hear him kind of clanging around as he's fumbling for a beer or whatever. And I'm like, I love that. I love that noise. Like at one point, what exotic animal did he have out back? I don't think it was the
A pig,
buffalo.
maybe?
It was something, and you could hear it in the background. And I'm like, that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. I don't. I want more of that. Like whether it's farm animals or whether it's dogs or whether Amy comes down and says,
Get your ass up here.
get up here. I'm like, that's the kind of stuff. That's the transparency that nobody has. And so I love that, by the way. I miss that, to be honest with you.
So Charlie is listening right now, and this is when the Dale Jr. download and everybody at Dirty Mo Media. I just absolutely love it when you put those shorts out all week long. This is the part that I want Charlie to edit. That you had it going, but you recognizing Dale Jr. giving you a download of how his race went, so you could write a press release. And at that moment, you really liked all that stuff going on, his real life.
Yeah.
And is that where it started becoming reality in your brain?
It is. And then also we started looking at not just exposing Dale's fans directly to Dale himself in the most authentic, transparent way possible, but now the world around him. So we started other podcasts. That's where Door Bumper Clear came in. Well, that was a TJ podcast. TJ was a spotter again. So, and we'd been using TJ. TJ was more or less a co-host on the Dale Jr. Download for years. And now we're going to go branch out and do a new podcast with TJ that's just spotters. And by the way, at the time, who cares what spotters got to say? Nobody. Like just the spotters themselves. But yet, TJ and Brett Griffin, we could start doing a podcast there. We started an outdoors podcast called Earnhardt Outdoors. We started, we had a couple other little podcasts. Back in the day was a fun podcast that we used to do. And so it was exposing the world to the Dale Jr. ecosystem as well. I think you might have been, I believe you were a guest on one of my favorite podcasts that we've ever done, and that was Fast Lane Family with Kelly Earnhardt Miller. We did it was called Fast Lane Family.
I did it.
And we did that for 3 years, I think. And I loved that show. And Kelly did a fantastic job, but those were just different conversations than we were having anywhere else. So again, it exposed the world to the insides of Kelly Earnhardt's way she thinks. And I promise you, she doesn't think like everybody else thinks. So now you're hearing, what it's like to have to as a very influential, prominent business leader in the sport, who also is Dale's sister, who also was Dale Sr.'s daughter, who was coming up through the business and being impactful in the ways that she was growing and escalating. Let's turn it into a podcast. Yes, let's do it. So that's what we do.
Okay. So we've established how it happened. It took a little therapy session to get there, but it was very interesting. And now here we are. Dirty Mo Media has the Dale Jr. Download, Actions Detrimental, and that's another subject here in a minute. Actions Detrimental with Denny Hamlin, Door Bumper Clear, the Teardown, and more to come. Now you've created this, I call a fortress. A fortress is this big old, building, and now you're putting all this stuff in it. I want to congratulate you on something that just came out. Now, okay, now we're moving forward. We've established where Dirty Mo Media started, and then under Dirty Mo Media we got Dale Jr. Download and all the new shows. But you just received an incredible honor. I want to congratulate you on being announced as the podcast power list for NASCAR racing by Awful Announcing. That is another company. And it's funny because we call it's got like a name. It's called podcasting. It's like surfing. It's like football, podcasting. It's almost like a damn sport. But Mike, congratulations, because your company, Dirty Mo Media, is listed now. You have been awarded the podcast power list for NASCAR racing What's that feel like?
Hey, do you think it's a coincidence that that list came out the day you announced that you and Schrader were coming? I
Love
don't
it.
think that's a coincidence. That was the same day.
That's a big
I
deal.
said all I needed was Wallace and Schrader to show up, and then all of a sudden people like, oh, they're pretty good over there. No, of course, it's nice, Kenny. I mean, I don't. I'm uncomfortable with I'm uncomfortable with accolades, or I'm uncomfortable with talking about them,
Let me
frankly. It, but it's nice. I mean, it's nice for the team. I mean, I love my team here, right? Like I love the and I'm not even talking about just the host. I love them too, but I'm talking about my employees at Dirty Mo Media, man. I mean, I I think that we got some outstanding content creators. And so
I
anytime
counted about 10. I took a
we got
picture.
15 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Listen up, everybody. Dirty Mo Media, 15. Yeah. I took a picture and I said, well, there's 9. Dale Jr.'s missing. So that's pretty incredible. 15.
I don't compare. I have no idea if that's incredible. I have no idea if that's pathetic. I have no idea what that is. All I know is it's us. It's who we are, and that's all I care about. And you know what? We don't just. I'd like to think the content that we come out with, we know who we are. We know our lane, right?
Yeah.
And we surround ourselves with the people and with shows and with hosts that we think are like us. Um, we're not for everybody, of course, and that's okay, right? That's okay. But I do think that our team is pretty outstanding, and I love the fact that when we do get those types of recognitions, I like it for them.
Okay. I want to go somewhere. It's not deep, but in my opinion, this is me, and I want you to comment on it.
Okay.
Dirty Mo Media has changed NASCAR forever. And here's why. Because this is the only way I know how to explain it. So, you got that song as a child that goes dun 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 dun, and it stops there and it drives you nuts. It's like, give me the dun dun, which is the ending. So, as I've watched the Dale Jr. download over the years, unbelievable endings with like Ty Norris. Ty Norris is, telling the real story, some of the inside reasons why decisions were made. The most fascinating one I think I almost wanted to jump in the screen and hug Dale Jr., which was Tony Uri Jr.,
Mm.
where he's literally addressing his cousin, his relative, about their fallout. And you know that NASCAR, all the executives are watching this. My point is this. 15 years ago, there was things that went down in NASCAR, and it was just like a tragedy. And these players, like a Ty Norris or Tony U Jr., kept their mouth shut all these years. But they chose Dirty Mo Media, the Dale Jr. download.
They chose
Go ahead.
Dale Jr.
Thank you.
They chose Dale.
Okay, let's go right there. So you've changed the sport forever because you gave everybody closure. And so you're saying it was because they wanted to talk to Junior.
Yeah. Okay. A lot to respond to there. First of
Yep.
all, I don't subscribe to the notion that Dirty Mo Media is changing NASCAR forever.
In a good way.
I don't see it. I just know because I just focus on us, right? I don't know what it does. I don't know what the impact, but I will say this. I will give you this. Forget why we started the Dale Jr. download, because that was to recap Dale Jr.'s races. But when Dale Jr. became the host of it, okay, the identity and the mission changed on the download. What is the podcast going to do? And you and I had this conversation too. Remember when you, me, and Charlie and Schrader were talking about our new podcast? We're like, okay, why will people listen to it? What will make it unique? What will make it different? it became very clear to me early on when Dale started taking over as the host. And we started actually when he took over as host, we weren't even doing long form interviews. That really kind of started after our deal with NBC. Dale Jr. was becoming a broadcaster. Now we were getting people in the studio, and it became clear to me that the purpose of the Dale Jr. download was to heal.
Mm. Heavy. That's heavy in a good way.
Trust me, it was healing. I saw it. I saw it right there. Not just for the guests, for Dale.
Mm.
It became clear to me that there were conversations that I would have thought had been had a long time ago that never were had. I can think of some early ones. Steve Park, Michael Waltrip. Let me tell you, I was in college in 2001. I was finishing up college, but I still had a few months left. And when that tragic day happened in 2001, I remember, seeing that. I mean, again, I'm a fan. I'm just a race fan, right? And I was there, and I was watching, and I would have just assumed, especially the next week when Steve Park won at Rockingham the next week. And I would see what's on the magazines and on the TV. I just thought, well, this group at DEI, this is gonna just really they're gonna be there for each other. When Dale Jr. won in 2001, I just graduated college, but I'd still not even taken a job yet. And I was in Texas, visiting a friend when that '01 July Daytona redemption race happened. And you see Dale Jr. and Michael Waltrip hugging and they're embracing and stuff. I just assume, like anybody else would, that, well, Dale and Mikey been talking. They're probably best friends if they weren't already. None of that was happening. And I didn't know it until we did the download, and that they weren't talking at all to each other. And it doesn't really surprise me because Dale Jr. is not much of an extrovert, right? He's very much opposite of that. And so I see that conversations that I assumed would have been had were never had. Okay. So you got Michael and Steve Park. Well, they needed healing too. It wasn't just Dale. Michael Waltrip was a troubled individual, still trying. I mean, he's come out with the book and he's come out with the documentary, but I'm telling you, I feel like every day Michael Waltrip wakes up and probably thinks about all this, right?
Yeah.
And so then you got Mike Helton come in. One of my favorite episodes was Richard Childress.
Brian France. Brian France blew me away. Now we're getting to what my original question was. These people, I mean, how the hell did you get Brian France to admit that he was pissed off that nobody liked his new car?
Again, I think it was Dale. I think it was Dale. Dale Jr., man. So I guess the point on this that I'm trying to make is that there's conversations that needed to be had, and people were wanting to have them, and they want to have them with Dale Jr. They could have them with a lot of other people.
In public.
Well, and you could say better than I would, but like you've sat at that table and you sat as a guest, and I've heard other people say you kind of forget that you're taping.
It's therapy.
And so I just know, like you said, you brought up Ty Norris. Ty Norris was a huge moment because Ty Norris called me after that show, and he goes, I went years after DEI because he had a very, very ugly exit from DEI, right? Like his exit had to do with Dale Jr. and Dale Jr. had nothing. He never knew it, and that was all to do with Teresa and everything else. And he's telling us his story, and then afterwards he calls me and he says, "Hey, I thought for years Dale Jr. was angry at me." And I'm like, why did you think that? And he goes, because he wouldn't ever talk to me. And I'm like, but Dale Jr. doesn't really talk to, like, you don't see him going.
He don't talk to anybody.
Not then. Not then.
Yeah.
No, again, not then. I mean, like, he'd roll out of bed and he would go and he'd practice the car, but you wouldn't see him going out and holding court. He went the life at the party, not at the parties that were very public. You have that wiring that where you can just talk to a stranger and make them feel amazing. But not everybody's wired like you. In fact, most people probably aren't. They're probably somewhere in between a Kenny Wallace and a Dale Jr. Again, Dale Jr. then. So he was very much an introvert. A lot of people drew assumptions based off that. And it wasn't until you're having them at the download that a lot of this stuff was being, a lot of healing was happening. And that was obvious to me. Again, I'm going to tell you something. The one that really sticks out to me, Kenny, is Schrader.
Oh gosh, yes.
So
Yes.
here it is. Again, I didn't know, but Dale Jr. had written a letter to Schrader. And I
Mm,
don't think Dale Jr. Even knew if he was going to read it to him. And we were
mm,
closing down the show, and Dale and I thought we were done. And then Dale says, "Hey, I got something I want to read you." And he starts reading that letter about the day Schrader looked in that window.
mm.
And we're all just like
This is
trying to keep
heavy.
it together. Oh, it was
Yeah.
heavy. And Schrader's trying to keep it together. Um, and so I'm like, man, I guess this is the long way around to your point. Have we changed NASCAR? No, I think we're just having conversations, and I think Dale Jr. is finding fulfillment in this type of format, and this he's having long form conversations when otherwise he'd never have them, right? He'd
Yeah.
never have the opportunity, but it's a safe, comfortable way for Dale Jr., the lifelong introvert, the shy kid, who was always undersized and bouncing from school to school to school to school and couldn't even stay in school. And now he's found a way to have comfortable conversation, and people are taking him up on it, right? Yourself, all of these people that you would think that he's been having a conversation. Richie Gilmore was just last year.
That was heavy.
Dale Jr. wanted to tell Richie, look, it wasn't your fault. The way the DEI sort of ended. Richie always sort of, we had learned, blamed himself, and Dale Jr. is now telling Richie, it wasn't your fault. I promise it wasn't your fault. Or I'm sorry, Richie blamed himself for Dale Jr. leaving the company. And Dale, where else is Dale Jr. and Richie Gilmore going to have that conversation? And so that's where I recognize the impact that the show has had, for sure.
It is of my opinion, if we're to put a percentage to this, 0 to 100%, I feel like the Dale Jr. download has been 70%, and this is a debate. The percentage can be a debate, but I'm saying it's been 70% therapy,
Yeah.
because the people that have come on, I mean, I came on and you guys saved my life, because when everybody watched that about me, the every dirt racing, after I did the Dale Jr. download, everywhere I went, everybody understood me, loved me more. They're like, all right, Wallace, wow, that was incredible. And I know that's got to be that way for everybody. I mean, so for me, 70% of the Dale Jr. download so far has been about what you just said, therapy, healing. Now, they say the best laid plans are the ones that are not planned.
I agree with that.
That could have never been planned.
No, 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 not
come
planned.
on our show. It's therapy.
Can you imagine how the conversation would have gone? Hey, Dale Jr., I got an idea. It's a way for you to talk to people about your dad.
No,
It's going to be great.
Oh,
No, that's not how that would have gone. But let me tell you, there's also another thing we're missing here, and that's what it's doing for Dale. And you fit in this bucket. I think Dale Jr., again, the purpose of the Dale Jr. download is for Dale Jr. I think Dale is still, I don't want to overstate this. Let me see how to say it. I think Dale Jr. likes having people that had good relationships with his dad, or even questionable. Ricky Rudd, maybe not the best relationship with Dale Earnhardt, but people got to remember, Dale Jr., it wasn't like he and Dale Sr. had the tightest relationship growing up. Dale Sr. was off being the greatest ever, and Dale Jr.'s back, bouncing from homes and bouncing around to schools and stuff. That's where Kelly, I always said, is the most influential person. But it wasn't until Dale Jr. started racing, and I could even make an argument that it was why Dale Jr. started racing, was to get closer to his dad. I still think Dale's getting closer to his dad, and he's doing it through the people that had the tight relationships with him, the hunting buddies, the people like yourself who raced with him and raced for him, and the people that worked for him. Hank Parker, 100%.
his quote about 2 months ago brought me to tears.
Oh,
He said, Dale
yeah.
Jr., for everybody that's watching right now, go back through the Dale Jr. download. And about 2 months ago, Hank Parker Sr., the dad, he says, I think is that who we call him? We call him Senior, right? And he looks at Dale Jr. right in the face and he says, "Your father loved you, and he just had a difficult way of telling you." Oh, every child in the world can relate with that.
And what an amazing gift, by the way. You think about the gift. Where do you think about the gift? And it's not lost on me, and I don't think it's lost on Dale to be able to still hear that 20 years later. And that is you're getting insight from the past, right? Like from the past. It's why, it's like when we do ancestry, do your genealogy and stuff. You're trying to learn about yourself, where you came from, what about your family. And that was a huge moment.
My dad loves me. He really did.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. Right. Huge moment. And there's a lot of those moments, right? And I think that that's where Dale uses the download. Certainly not every single week, but the download has been a mechanism in which Dale Jr. can still learn about his dad, right? Like the
Yeah.
hunting buddies, the people that raced with him, because those are the ones that really got that time. Dale Jr. didn't get that time. Not until he really started racing, not even start racing. I'd say when he started driving for DEI, and winning the championship in '98. That's where you see a lot of those pictures and things where Dale Earnhardt, Dale Jr. started winning, and that was something. And now they could spend time with each other, which also makes the story so tragic, right? Because you lost him in 2001. It's a heck of a story, man, and it's still played out. And again, not the reason why we started the download, not the reason why Dirty Mo Media exists, but it's obvious that that's how it serves us, and it serves Dale in that way.
And that is where we are. And that's, we are celebrating your career, Mike, but we can't talk about Kenny Wallace unless Rusty's involved, because if it weren't for Rusty, I'd never be where I'm at. And, it is about you. It was your idea. I think let's wrap this up. It was your idea. And like we said, here it's become this big therapy session, and it is must listen. Once we start listening to the Dale Jr. downloads, like people for weeks and months go, "Oh my God, did you hear what, Brian France said? Did you hear what Hank Parker said?" And that's where I wanted to get with this. It just seems like Dale Jr. download is 70% therapy session for everything that's happened. And I mean, it has made many people go, "Oh my God, I never knew, but did you hear that's why that happened 20 years ago?"
Right.
Why didn't nobody, and it's like, why did nobody ever mention that? But I just say, and now I'm done with that. But what I want to do, I want to say with you in ending is that it amazes me that people kept that in their belly for 20 years.
Right.
And
Right.
chose the download to deliver the goods.
Oh, you know what it says? It says you drivers don't talk to each other at all. And you're the
Wow.
exception to the rule. But it's
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna get your opinion on something. I remember Dale Jr. All right, so I'm gonna get your opinion on this.
Yep.
And this might explain how I look at drivers. Drivers are a rare breed, right? You
Yes.
gotta be, because you
Yes.
guys you live in a dangerous. You're on the edge of your seat all the time. And much like comedians, comedians. People think, well, these comedians are just the funniest people ever. Really, they have a dark side, right?
Yeah.
They're not that
Smart.
fun. Right,
They
right.
know.
So drivers, I think on the surface, it looks like, oh, they talk, they obviously they're in the motorhome lot. So if they're motorhome lot, it must be a big old campfire. Like they all get together and just sit there and hang out. But my observations, or at least my experience, has been that drivers don't talk to each other at all.
Right.
And you would be the exception to the rule. But again, I would say this: when Dale Jr., when Kevin Harvick pissed us off so much, and he hurt Dale, I love Kevin Harvick so much, and I will always love him for what he did for junior motorsports. And this is such a blip on his radar when he came to JRM, but he was so much fun, and he was so competitive, and he brought back a winning spirit that in a place that really needed it, which made the comments that he made about Dale after Dale was retiring, it made it hurtful. And my point on this is that I remember Dale Jr. talking to me, and he said, "Hey, listen, man, why are you having what are you why are you struggling with this?" And I said, "Because I thought Kevin was our friend." And he goes, "There's not friends in NASCAR."
That's right.
He goes, "There's not." He goes, and I said, "That's not true." And he goes, "I'm telling you, the friend, your tightest friends, your closest friends, do you think they're in the sport?" Like, he's asking me personally. I'm like, "No, my closest friends are the ones I went to high school with."
Mm.
I don't want to say that the friendships in NASCAR are all superficial, but all I'm saying on this is that we're in an entertainment industry where you have to sing and dance, and you have to perform, and you have to say the right things, because if you don't say the right thing, it's gonna, you're gonna get slapped, however that is. And so everyone's on edge, and nobody's talking to each other. They're afraid. You're
Mm.
afraid to really be vulnerable to a situation, aren't you? You're afraid because what are the repercussions to it? And I think that's a deep explanation, very deep, but I do think that there's something to it. I think that if we've developed a mechanism in which we can circumvent that, what is a natural tendency that I think where race car drivers and the people in the profession don't have rich, conversation, and don't really get to know each other deeply. That's where I think we've been able to find a way around it a little bit. But now, what's your opinion? I wanted to know: are are there true friendships in NASCAR, or do you find your friendships, the ones that mean the most to you, are beyond the driver's seat?
And this is why you should have never left as the co-host of Dale Jr. Download, because no, I'm teasing, and that's going to be the next question. The next question I'm going to ask, I'm going to answer you, but I want to keep myself honest here. You are the former co-host of Dale Jr. Download, and you left for great reasons. But let me answer that question, because you just reminded me how good you are at this. This is Kenny Wallace. I'm going to answer that. I try very hard. You're right. I am wired differently than most people. I want to be your friend, then I want to go on the racetrack. I want to race the hell out of you. You hit me, you spin me out, we're going to argue about it. I'll decide whether I'm going to forgive you or not. My brother Rusty explained this to me. He was watching me out of his motor coach window at Bristol. And I was talking to Steve Grissom, Chuck Mound, and I heard, Kenny. I turn around, and it's Rusty. I'm like, this is strange. I kind of think he needs something. He walks in there. I walk into Rusty's motor coach. He looks at me, goes, what the hell are you talking to those guys for? I said, they're my friends. He goes, no, they're not. He said, none of them guys are your friends. He said, and here's what he said. They're all trying to get you. And a lot of things that I use right now, like me talking right now, this is the face that I'm using. This is the real Kenny. Most of what I do is a Saturday Night Live innuendo. I'm the greatest. Nobody better than you. It's like the church lady. Where did he get the church lady, on Saturday Night Live? Well, it's because he went to the church and he surveyed, and it's all the women with their hair poofed up. So basically, everything I do is a comedy about what I'm the greatest. Nobody better than you. Why do you try beating me on social media? I'm the greatest. That's Rusty. That's Dale Earnhardt Sr. That's Ricky Rudd. That is David Pearson. Have you ever been around Richard Petty? I mean, Richard's the king, but buddy, you don't got to ask me, but those guys that I just mentioned, they have no time for you because they are the greatest. You're in my way. So when you race, here's my opinion. I want to be their friends, right? And then I see the side of them. I'm like, oh, he's a prick. I don't think I want to be his friend. And for me, that's it. There are people that I try to be friends with, and I'm like, nope. They're dark. There's something wrong with them. They don't enrich me. They don't give me happiness.
Right.
And that's my answer to you. So many of these athletes live their self-worth. So in other words, NASCAR drivers judged here. This is the quote. NASCAR drivers judge their self-worth how the car goes in circles. That's it. That's all there is to it. And they could win one NASCAR Cup championship and they could win 30 races. And I would brag on them on Kenny Conversation. And the first thing they come back was all the races that didn't go good.
Yeah.
So I can't be friends with anybody because they're just pricks. They really are. There's hardly anybody that's good. They just are. They're, and it's just the way it is. It's athleticism as it is. You read all them stories about Michael Jordan. He don't hang out with Scottie Pippen, or any of those guys. And it's really an athleticism curse. I say athleticism. I use that word a lot lately. It's kind of a comedy, but if you're an athlete and you're a good one, I'm the exception. I'm a good racer. I'm not a great racer, but I can be really nice to you, and then I can throw you a slider coming for the win, and you're just going to have to eat it. But I can still be your friend. It's up to you if you want to be my friend or not. I can be Mike. I can be a dick, and I really am. I'd say at heart I'm a prick, but I try to clean it up to get along with people. I put a lot of effort into my friends. I put a lot of effort into Dale Jr. I really do. So there's your answer.
Yeah, and if you don't put that effort, then the friendship isn't what it is. It requires that much effort from you. It requires that, and that's no knock on anybody else. Again, you said something that's interesting, and I tend to believe it. Like the true great ones, you mentioned Michael Jordan. Like I think that what you're seeing is that they choose to be great by sacrificing some things around them, which is likability or friendships or social event, whatever it is. I mean, like, can you be great and do all those things? Maybe somebody can, but that's an instinctual thing. Maybe you're just born with that ability. But for the most part, there's a sacrifice to being great or even being good. And where do you sacrifice? Where do you cut? Like, where do you say, no, I'm not going to bend on this. This is just the way it's going to be. And I just see that, especially in this sport, like there's a lot of people that would say that they're friends, but they don't practice friendship.
I only seen a couple real friends to this day, and it sticks in my head. I truly believe that Jeff Burton was good friends with John Andretti. I really believe that. Whether they were or not, they tried. I saw them literally going out to eat with each other. Here, let's end this subject like this. If you're in the NASCAR Cup Series and you're trying to be friends with another driver, it's got to go through the wives somewhat,
Yeah.
because the wives got to smooth it over, because you're eating and you're like, some bitch trying to get me somehow. It's this dinner's only going to go good if he outrun me the week before. But all right, we got to move on because I'm already at a damn hour with you.
You knew this wasn't going to be a quick one.
I knew it wasn't going to be, but God, it's so good because you are giving us such a great insight on Dirty Mo Media that, to me, changed NASCAR forever in a good, positive way, because I believe it. I believe Dirty Mo Media and the Dale Jr. Download, this is my opinion. I think it has made people heal. I think it made Brian France, my God, the greatest in the sport. Okay. I've been trying to keep it is about you. So you're the former co-host of the Dale Jr. Download, and you asked me some great questions. Why did you remove you are your own boss? You and Dale Jr. boss each other around. Why did you leave being the co-host?
It was time. I wasn't enjoying it as much.
Mm.
I felt like the show needed to change, and I felt like, I just felt like it was time. I mean, sometimes you just kind of have that instinct that like, oh, wait a second. I mean, as much as I sometimes you have to really self-reflect, right? And I'm maybe you've probably done this, like when you go, okay, I want to stop. I don't want to try keeping this NASCAR thing going. Like, at some point you had to have a
Oh yeah.
conversation with you had a Kenny conversation with yourself, right?
I left Charlotte. I got the hell out of
Yeah,
there.
right. And so I just listen, it's Dale's show, okay? Not a single day did I ever go into that thinking anything other than it's Dale's show. It's Dale's show. It's Dale's show. I wanted to devote the time that it was taking to be on the show. I wanted to channel that into the company. And so I was, let me see how to say this. I was starting to get, I was starting to hold a bit of a grudge, not at anybody in particular, but just at the situation that I wasn't being able to really kind of put my efforts and energy and thoughts into the company and starting new shows and doing those things and still doing the download. The download was a commitment. Now it's a commitment and it still is a commitment. And I just felt like it was time for me to take some of that time back and put it into the company because we're going to need it now. Because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of you content creators just started sprouting up over the past couple years, and now all of a
You
sudden there's
start
competition.
I want to make this clear. Dirty Mo Media started all this. Dale Jr. called me, and I'm going to go ahead and say this because I think it will make him look good. Nothing really makes him look bad. In other words, I have no dirt on Dale Jr. He calls me, and I've said this before. He's probably called me 5 times, and he always texts me. But when he calls me, I'm like, oh crap. And he said, I just want to let you know something. He says, you're doing your show, we're doing ours. Every once in a while, we're going to overlap guests without knowing it. And just know nothing. This is quote. I wanted to reach through the phone and hug him. Dale Jr. said, Kenny Wallace, nothing will ever come between our friendship. We are friends forever. But every once in a while, you and I might interview the same people and you might get a different answer. And that's the only reason he called me. And it was just unbelievable. So you started all this, Mike Davis. And of course, Charlie called me up because podcasting became this new thing. So, yeah, all the credit to you. You were the original podcaster in NASCAR.
Well, listen, I humbly disagree, but that's okay.
My story.
Your story, right? I will say that though, going back to your question, like, I also had a bit of, again, I was taking exception. I wouldn't say it made me angry. I don't say anything like that, but my identity, my value is on what the future of the company is. But I didn't love the fact that my identity, people would think that I'm just here to be a co-host on the Dale Jr. Download. Like I don't know what that was. That was something that I was having to really kind of wrestle with. And I just, because I have bigger plans, right? Like my vision for this was not going to be relegated to the Dale Jr. Download only. The Dale Jr. Download is a huge piece of it, but the fact of the matter is it's a huge piece of it, but it's Dale's show, and I need that to keep going because it's still, there's a lot. I still think there's a lot to still do. There's still a lot of healing. There's still a lot of conversations that need to be had. There, we got a lot of people that we want on the show. But I just didn't think it needed me anymore. And so I told Dale midway through last year, like June-ish, July, that this was kind of gonna like, I'll finish out this year. But like I really was looking forward to spending time with my partners out in LA, spending time with people that are, helping me build the company. And that's what I really get excited about. That's when I'm in my happy place. That's my driver's seat. It's not in front of a camera, frankly. you know, you and I had this conversation when you asked me to be on this. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not comfortable necessarily being in front of cameras. So that's people would think that that's hard to believe. In fact, a lot of people that sit there and think that I was on the download for myself couldn't have it more wrong. But like that's not I'm not most comfortable in that situation. I like the company and the vision and the mission that we have. Kenny, you know, what excites me and what fulfills me is, you know, the building of the shows and what you and I are doing together. Like that's what I get excited about. Like, you know, building that show out, being able to tell those stories, getting into your brain and getting into Schrader's brain. Like that's where I'm really in my happiest. And so that's I don't know. That's a long answer to kind of like why I made the decision to leave the download. But again, as you know, I haven't left the download at all. I'm still
No.
producing the download. It's as I'm as involved and as it's as important to me as it ever was. And I'm just not in front of the camera anymore.
So I want to. I always like making people feel good. And Kenny Schrader made me feel a little guilty because he said as we were promoting the show, the new show coming up, whatever it's going to be called, but he said, I don't want to hear everybody's opinion. That's what Schrader said. I'm like, well, you're wrong. I do want to hear everybody's opinion. So I'm going to give you my opinion. My opinion is that you made the right move getting off as a co-host. I believe you are more enriched and you are more like this. You're more popular now because everybody knows you are you know, kind of the guy that makes it all happen. You are that like that executive. That is, in my opinion, good move. Um, I like it. And now I want to ask a controversial question. And I want you to straighten everybody out, including me. Who owns, and I don't expect you to tell me like exactly, but how does this split up between you and Dale Jr.? Do you own it? Do you own Dirty Mo Media, or are you and him partners?
He's got the majority stake.
Okay, that's but
Yeah.
you and him
By
are
the way,
partners.
as he should.
Right.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that everybody needs to understand. Um, if Dirty Mo Media screws up, it looks way worse on Dale Jr. than it does Mike Davis, right?
His name's out there.
Yeah. He's the one that Sports Center will make a story about. He's the one that so no, this is a Dale Jr. company.
Yeah.
Do I own some of it? Yes. But that's only because again, I go back to Dale and Kelly always just showing me the utmost appreciation and compliments. You know, whether or not that's even what they're trying to do, but that was a gesture that they gave me, and I will always be indebted for it. I'm living my dream. I work in racing and I work in NASCAR and I work for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and I have for 20 years. And the 2 years before that was with Jimmy Spencer, and I value that as well, right? Um,
And look here, it's you know, it's right here, and
yeah,
we're gonna
we'll get
end.
there.
We're gonna end. We're starting the movie early, and
Yeah, but I'm just saying, Kenny, I'm just saying, this is my dream. I'm in media. What I went to college for, I'm playing out, and I'm doing it in this environment. I'm a blessed man, and so the fact that Dale and I are partners in that is also an amazing gesture, an amazing thing, and also I feel the responsibility of that. A lot of people sit there, I want to own this, I want to own that. I wanted to feel the pressure of
yeah,
it. I want because it's easy to spend Dale Jr.'s money, or it's easy to go grow something on the back of Dale Earnhardt Jr. It's not that there's harder ways to do it, right? There's harder ways to do it. Um, I did say to Kelly and Dale that I do want to feel the magnitude of a decision, right? I wanted my ass on the line.
mhm,
And there, you know, when you talk about having a stake in something, that's good and bad, right?
right.
If it fails, I fail with it. If it sinks, I'll sink with it. I'll go down with the ship. If it succeeds, then we can all feel good about that. But at the same time, this is my living, and I'm doing something that it's a dream job, right? And I get to grow a media company with Dale Jr. It's a dream job.
So now let's kind of turn around and go back a little bit.
Okay.
Why does Dale Jr. and Kelly like you? Why do you guys get along? 20 years. You got to reflect. You got to look internally. You've had to go down the road, certainly, every once in a while. Maybe you don't even know, but if you dig deep, what is it that you think puts you three together? Because certainly Kelly could badmouth you behind your back. And, all three of you are still going 20 years. Why?
Well, I don't know, but I'll attempt an answer. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. I don't know, but I'll attempt the answer. Well, I love talking to young people who aspire to be in this sport, and I say the same thing to them. And maybe this has something to do with it. I don't know, but maybe it does. I've never taken a day for granted. I don't feel like I belong. I don't feel like I've earned some sort of job security. I very much intentionally feel the opposite. I intentionally feel the opposite. I treat every day like it's a job interview.
Mm.
Okay. Because at any day, this sport can spit you out. It, Look, when the lifeblood of this profession is corporate sponsorship, there's no guarantees for tomorrow, is there?
No.
None. And that's not just for drivers. Drivers are the ones that are most publicized, but that's for crew members. That's for team. It's for anything. So the fact of the matter is that, you know, I don't, I don't know what tomorrow brings, and I want to earn it. Right. You got to keep in mind, like, I got the race shop through my window here.
Mhm.
That was Dale's idea. Dale wanted to have Junior Motorsports. Dale did not sign up to run a media company. Now, has he found a love for it, and has he found a place for it? Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, if it causes him problems, he can just shut the door, can he? I mean, and he should. He should, because you don't sign up for headaches in your life. You sign up to, especially when you've reached our age, you're just looking to ride it out peacefully, right? Like you're just trying to just like get rid of your problems and just surround yourself with nothing but good, happy things. So if I'm not providing something that's good or happy, then you don't need me. And I not only understand it, but I agree with it. I agree with it. So maybe there's something to that, because I know that we've hired people in the past that, when you start working for the Earnhardt company, if you have even a hint of ego, then you start to feel real good about yourself, and you can let a lot of the surrounding temptations or the surrounding influences really kind of put you into bad decisions or bad ideas. And one of them is thinking that you're as important as Dale. I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen multiple times in this company, where people think that they are as important as Dale Jr. And I'm like, your name ain't on the front of that building, and it won't be. And also I just can't agree with that. I can't agree with that type of approach. So I like to go, and I like to tell my employees this, and I like to tell the people that even ask about my opinion on how do I get in the sport. I say, get your foot in the door. Don't ever get complacent. Get your foot in the door, and then your focus then is staying. How do you stay?
Yeah.
And you stay by being an example and being hard to replace. And you show up and you do the right things. And you come up with ideas where, hey, listen, in my case, Dirty Mo Media. Well, you say, oh, well, big deal. Well, you got to remember something about Dirty Mo Media. We were at a point where we were starting to think about, what does life after racing look like for Dale Jr.? We had done a TV show with Shaquille O'Neal in 2010. It was a show on ABC called Shaq Versus. And Shaq came here, raced in a car against Dale Jr. and Shaq's team came. And we were sitting there we were just gleaning information. Hey, Shaquille O'Neal, legendary basketball player, as relevant after basketball as he was in basketball, maybe even more so. You can't count how many commercials he's been on. You can't
Good
count how many.
example.
So Michael Strahan's another one. And these are people that I go glean information like, how did you do it? How do you do this stuff? And so this was happening back as early as 2010. Dale's last season was 2017. So when you look at the seeds that were sown of Dirty Mo Media or some of the other things we were doing, Kelly, myself, the brand team, we were already trying to think about what life after racing looks like. And I saw Dirty Mo Media as one, not the only, but one way for Dale Jr.'s name and influence and the fans that we serve to continue beyond just the driver's seat and the steering wheel. So I don't even know where we were going with all this, Kenny.
No,
But
you know, why do you and Dale Jr. and Kelly get along? And
That's right.
basically, in ending, I'll capsulate it. It's because you don't think you're anybody. You come
Right.
in there and you just bust ass, and you feel like you and Kelly and Jr. are recognizing you all together just bust ass. You just work your ass off, and you don't ever gloat on any success. Okay, so moving forward, and this is a fun one. When was the last time you or Kelly or Junior argued?
Oh my gosh.
Tell me about them. Well, give me an inside look at a disagreement, and how do you stay friends?
So I've argued a lot more with Dale than I have with Kelly.
Yeah, I bet. She's
uh,
a badass. I'm afraid of her.
it,
Not
right.
really.
Uh,
I love her.
I love her. And to be honest with you, I respect Kelly's opinion so much on everything that it like for me to even
She's smart.
for me to even refute something she says just feels off, right? Like
Tell me about it. Tell me about a Dale Jr. argument. You and him.
Listen, man, I'm going to tell you something. Dale and I have had some doozies, but to be honest with you, well, especially when we were traveling. I mean, there was a point when Dale again was in that drought, that winning drought, right?
Yeah, with Hendrick.
And with Hendrick, and he was living in a dungeon. Like it didn't even have any windows. It was the most dark and depressing. It was like a get by type of thing. Like he was living above his shop while his house was being built. And we were, it's just, there was tension, you know. I never once doubted that we loved each. Of course, I love the guy. Like, you know, there was never any doubt there, but we just were always tense. And it wasn't just us, it was everything, right? Everything was tense. So Dale and I would have some good arguments. Let me think of a good one for you.
Well, you don't really have to tell me.
Well, no,
about
wait
one.
a second. There's I'm not going to confirm or deny this, but there's a belief that sometimes I might manufacture an argument just because I know that after the argument, you know, you can pretty much get anything you want from me. But like, if you need that answer to be yes, no, that I don't know if that's totally true, but I know this. Here's what I would tell you in summation here. I've always felt like I could be honest with Dale.
That's big.
And he always, I feel like he can be honest with me. He and I, I'll tell you the last one we had, the good one. And now this has been about a year. It's been about a year, so we're due.
You guys are brothers.
Yeah, but like, you know, we're
due for an argument.
We're due for one, right? He called me 30 minutes ago, and I'm blaming you on this one. But he called me 30 minutes. He gets mad when I don't answer his call.
You say Herman won't let me off.
I tried. But no, like, you know, we had a pretty good disagreement or something over I think there was a potential sponsor with the company that we were trying to decide on whether to take it or not, and we had a disagreement on that, I believe. That wasn't even a good. There was one.
You're
This goes back to the driving.
you're debating whether to tell me or
No,
not.
no, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to give you a good story, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, I just realized that the one about the potential sponsor, not even that good of an argument. It was just
But you do argue
yeah, I mean, we're just
once a
honest with
year.
each other. We're just honest with each other. I mean, like listen, I can't be a guy that can't that is dishonest or doesn't say what I
Yeah.
think. If I feel like there's a decision we're making that's not good, I'm going to say it. And that may go back to answering your question of why does he keep me around? Maybe there's a value to that.
Yeah.
Maybe that he's been surrounded by a bunch of yes men. I'm not a yes man.
Yeah.
Not although there's a lot of people on social media that have always accused me of that, but again, I don't think they know us. They don't know me and they don't know Dale, and so they're just taking what face value on the Dale Jr. download, which we've had arguments on the download too. So
I would say, in my humble opinion, honestly, it sounds to me like you two are brothers, and that's a compliment. I seriously, I think you guys are brothers. I think Kelly's your sister, and all right, we're going to end it like this in a fun way. My notes say you started in 2002 when Jimmy Spencer hired you.
Danielle Randall hired me.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the name for you now.
Yeah.
she was
my PR lady.
That's right.
So she hired you. Okay, go ahead.
The Motorsports Decisions Group.
Right. I'll be darned.
Yes, I got a call. When I was graduating college, I probably sent 70, 80 resumes, mailed them. Somebody did an amazing thing for me. I want to tell you the story. This is really good. Do you remember the guy named Ken Patterson at Talladega? He was the head PR guy at Talladega.
Yeah.
And he didn't know me from Adam, but we had a mutual friend, Mark McCarter, who had been Michael Waltrip's PR guy, but he's mainly a newspaper guy. And that's how I knew Mark McCarter. Anyways, Mark knew that I needed, that I was aspiring. I was graduating college and he knew I wanted to get into racing. And he goes, I'm going to introduce you to a guy named Ken Patterson. He's the head guy at Talladega. And they used to have those industry contact books. Now I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to do this, but he faxed me back in 2001, the contact pages of the industry contact book. And so I sent resumes to every race team, every PR agency, if there was a contact, a mailing address or a phone number in that book, I sent them a resume. I got 0 responses.
My Lord.
Until 5 or 6 months later, now I'm a newspaper columnist and writer in Albany, Georgia, and which is where I met my wife, my eventual wife. So it was a short, quick pit stop, a 2-tire stop in Albany, Georgia, but I did pick up a wife. And so, but I got a call from Danielle Randall. Wasn't even Bauer at the time, I don't think. But so she was one of the people I'd sent a resume to, and I turned it down because I was like, yeah, I'm now got a job and I'm, and she called me back a year later or a week later and said for me to reconsider. Now, why would somebody who they don't know call me back if you're not desperate? Now, why would she be desperate? And the answer is that Jimmy Spencer could not find somebody to work with him.
Mr. Excitement.
Yeah. So I end up, long story short, taking the job, moving to Charlotte, didn't own a thing. Speed Weeks had already started, 2002. Her account was with Yellow Transportation, the Yellow Freight Trucking Company. And the team in that account was James Finch. And by the way, Kenny, you remember this. Finch, like my first race was Daytona. Finch would take a restrictor plate car and absolutely whoop their ass with it. Look at there. Yeah.
I'm gonna send this to Charlie.
Yeah.
And there's Junior and Spencer working on speed. You two must still love each other.
We do, but the funny thing about that picture is that Dale and Jimmy don't necessarily love each other.
No.
And so I think that picture, I laugh more at the fact that Dale Jr. is probably super uncomfortable in that moment.
I'm
But
sending that to Charlie right now. Charlie,
but
drop that picture right here.
but Danielle hired me, and again, I knew I could not figure out how I got that job, but then I realized soon that Jimmy was not the easiest thing to work with, but Jimmy and I hit it off really well. I talked to Spencer a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact. So those 2 years, the first one with Finch, and then the second one with Ultra Motorsports, Jimmy Smith, and so those were two. I look at those years as I learned a lot of PR that year, on how to crisis manage. Actually, yeah, I'm
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
crisis management. The first year he got fired by Ganassi. Finch, he and Finch had a little bit of a falling out. The second year, well, he punched Kurt Busch and he got
Yeah.
suspended. So
You were with him during that?
yeah, I stood right next to him. Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
I got a great stories about that.
Tell me exactly how that happened. Tell me your version.
I'll tell you the version nobody knows. I think maybe me and Spencer talked about it when he was on the download, but I'll tell it here. Jimmy and Kurt obviously had run-ins all year. Started at Bristol. Jimmy almost won that cup race, and Kurt ended up winning it. And I knew Jimmy was crushed by that. But then Jimmy ends up wrecking him at Indianapolis hard.
Yeah.
And then here they are at Michigan, and they're racing, and I mean they're beating and banging. Difference is that Spencer was a lap down and Kurt was leading the race.
Oh God.
And yet Jimmy is not letting him go by, and it's great. They're drag racing down the front stretch. I mean, Michigan, they put up so much. I mean, they're pulling so much speed there. Anyways, so they had it mixed it up in that race, and so they're pulling into the garage, and you know how that garage is laid out. And Jimmy and Kurt, Jimmy's following Kurt, and Kurt stops his car right in front of the lift of the transporter, right? Jimmy's, in front of Jimmy's. So Jimmy would have liked to have been able to pull his car up onto the lift, help the team out. They don't have to go, maneuvered around with whatever. This is my vantage point. I don't even know if that's true, but I know that he stopped in front of the lift. Jimmy hops out and starts yelling. Now I can't hear exactly what he's saying. I just know his head is in the window. And this is not something this isn't the first time I've seen this. I saw him yelling at Todd Bodine so hard after a race. I think at Watkins Glen, like yelling at Todd Bodine. But again, I also knew there was a history there. So I just figured this is just Jimmy doing, he's just mad about something and he's yelling at Kurt. Kurt gets out of the car and he's got blood coming down his nose. And I'm like,
uh-oh.
Ooh, he hit him. Oh my God, he hit him. And Kurt's saying, you're done. You're over. You're nothing. You're over. And so he's going to the NASCAR hauler. So here's the fun part. The fun part is that Jimmy and I and Pat, his wife, who I adore.
Oh, she's sweetheart.
Adore her.
Opposites attract for sure.
Opposites. In every way possible. Oh my God.
Awesome.
She's awesome. We hightail it to the car because we're getting out of that speedway. Yeah. We're not going to hang around and see what happens.
Yeah.
And we're in line and we're trying to get out on the track because, it's always a race to get to the airport.
Go around the back straightaway, take the roads
to
the airport.
Right. You got to get out on the track and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we were so quick. They hadn't even opened up the track for us to drive out on yet. So we're in line. And then finally, a NASCAR official comes over and knocks on the door window and says, "Come here."
Oh,
almost got out of there.
Almost got out.
Almost got out of there. And so so we go back, we park it, we go back in the garage, and then he got called to the NASCAR hauler, Jack Roush, and that whole contingent was there. And he was in trouble at that point. And so that was we get to the plane later that night, and I said to him, so why did you hit him? I'm like, I know about the yell, but why'd you hit him? And he says, he parked in front of my truck. And I'm like,
No.
what?
Tell the
That's
truth.
it?
Tell the
That-
truth, Jimmy.
uh, I knew why, because uh, Jimmy still had it out to him, for him. They hated each other. I still think they do. I still think they do. I think that's the one thing that, um, hey, I got another little story to
Well,
you. You know,
isn't it true that Bobby Allison and Richard Petty still don't like each other? I mean, or one of those guys, you still hear. I
yeah,
mean, Bobby
they
still, yeah.
there's not a lot of forgiveness in this sport. There's a you can put a band-aid on it a little bit, and just you can act appropriate at the functions and the things, and you can do what's good for your sponsor. But deep down, there's a lot of aggression probably still to this day. They probably carry. And here's what I wanted to tell you. So Kurt Busch and I never had a relationship, and I didn't even know the guy until much later. And Kurt had come on the download, and then we started chit chatting afterwards. And he and I started talking about content ideas together. And I said, "Hey, Kurt, I got the best idea. I got the best idea for you."
I know where this is going.
I said, because he also knew that he was planning for retirement. He was thinking about it. And I said, "You should do a documentary. Let me do it, where you go to everybody that you've run into or crossed, and that list is long. You go and you seek out conversation with them and attempt forgiveness. And that means all of them. That means, I mean, gosh, Jack Roush, Roger Penske, the sheriff that arrested you out in Phoenix,
and I drove his car the next day.
super sub. That means probably Kyle on some level. That maybe an ex-wife here or there, and Jimmy Spencer.
Wow.
And would you know that Jimmy Spencer was the one that was the no deal? It's like,
I'll go to the sheriff, but I'm not going to Spencer. Oh,
what are you
God.
talking about? Like,
This
I
is
even
good
had a
stuff.
clever name for it and everything. So, I thought that was a good idea. But maybe we'll do that one day. But like I'm telling you, those guys, look, it's okay. Sometimes you just don't like the other fella, right? Sometimes you just don't like them.
There's people I choose. I want to like them. They're too dark. They don't bring anything good, and anything to do is fake. So I'm with you. Listen, Mike, you have been wonderful. You really have. And these are some of these conversations where I'm like, we need a part two, because for me, it's kind of like through the lens of Mike Davis. You've carved your own path. You sent out 80 resumes. You went to, Georgia Southern University. You removed yourself from, the Dale Jr. download. You just keep creating your life. And I want to thank you so much for being on Kenny Conversation. And I know there's more to talk about, but there'll just be another one. And thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me. Still don't know that anybody will watch this one, Kenny, but you said it didn't matter. So I said, all right, I'm there, buddy. Whatever you want.
They will listen, and we still got to get to actions detrimental, and
yeah.
That'll be another day.
That'll be another day.
Listen, everybody, we are in podcast form, iTunes and Spotify. Check us out. Kenny Conversation just keeps on rolling. Until the next time, we'll see you then.